old school, and I've got like these little index.
Yes.
You know, if I forget where I'm at, index like. Yeah, as Sally mentioned, my name's Brooke Elizabeth. I've kind of recently started to become more known as like the Movement Witch, is like my brand and, you know, my Instagram handle. And my talk today revolves a lot around kind of how that came to be and why that story is kind of important. So we're going to talk about, like Sally mentioned, like the importance of kind of finding your own authentic, like true approach to movement, pole dancing specifically, because that's, you know, my specialty. But like it applies to like all forms of creativity, movement, whatever you want to apply it to. So real quick, a little bit about myself, because you kind of need to hear the backstory to understand where we're going. But I took my first pole dancing class in 2010. I was living in California, and me and my roommate, like we honestly did it for my birthday, thinking it was going to be like kind of like a dumb like thing that we were going to do once and never do again. And we like shared a bottle of wine and showed up. And I remember halfway through being like this is awesome, right? I looked at my friend and I was like, dude. And then I was hooked ever since. So I like started taking, you know, 5 or 6 classes a week. I got my hot pink little Minx pole, put it up in my room. Started dancing at the local strip club. Like I went like all in, right? And when I look back at those days, really like the thing that stands out the most about that is like why I was doing it. I didn't even have an Instagram then. I'm not even sure it was a thing at that point, and if it was definitely 15-second videos. You guys remember that? And so I really like, when I look back at that time, it's like, man, what was it that was like keeping me going back to pole dancing all the time? And like, honestly, at the bottom of it all, like I just loved it. It was fun. It made me feel good. It was a good workout. I had really awesome friends that I was meeting. Like I just loved doing it. I wasn't, you know, trying to win a competition or impress judges. I wasn't trying to get like Instagram likes or followers. I wasn't at the time trying to like gain, you know, credibility or visibility as like a professional pole dancer or as a studio owner. It was just 100% for me. It's the only reason I was doing it. So, you know, fast forward quite a few years, and I had moved back to my hometown, and there was no pole dancing studios in the area within like an hour-and-a-half drive. So I started teaching some people because I wanted pole friends, right? Okay, like, come on, pole's really great, let's be friends. So, and I kind of always knew in the back of my head, like, you know, owning a studio would be really cool. The opportunity presented itself, I jumped on it, and I became a studio owner. And after a few years of being a studio owner, and like, you know, PSO really started taking off, and like competitions started being like a really big, like cool thing. And I started getting a lot of students asking me about it, and I was always like, you know, I don't know. Like 7 years in, I had never had a desire to compete. It was always, again, something I did for me, and then I did it to have pole friends, and then I realized, hey, this is great, let's keep sharing it. But after a while, like enough people asking me, I sort of felt like I was doing them a disservice by not having the answers. So I agreed to do my first pole competition, and a little bit about myself, I'm real competitive. And this is kind of why I didn't want to, I kind of knew, you know, like, ugh, like this might take it from something I love and I do for myself to a whole different mentality. So I kind of begrudgingly signed up, but you know, I was like, well, I'm going to do level 4, I'm going to win. And I hired a coach, and I started doing a lot of research on like Instagram, and I started looking at what was trending. And I, you know, like, I like wanted to be Oka Koda, because who doesn't? And I put this piece together. I hired a coach, I put this piece together that was like largely influenced by what I thought would win based off what was trending and what I thought people wanted to see. So I go to this competition, and I, you know, make my debut, and not only did I win, but the piece I put out there and the style I put out there was extremely well received. And I started getting like overnight, like double the amount of Instagram followers. I had like hundreds of Facebook friend requests. People I didn't even know were messaging me like, oh man, like I was so inspired by your piece. And I started getting more like professional opportunities. And I was like, wow, like cool. I did it, you know. But what happened was like that was all great, and it was a really great part of my like journey in my career. But it really quickly pigeonholed me into this style that I came out with, and I felt like everything I did from there on out had to be the same style because it was so well received. So here comes the best part of the whole story. So I got accepted into my first professional pole competition, like right off the bat, second competition I've ever done. And I started training for it, same process, looking at Instagram, trying to be Ogakoda, looking at, you know, training with my coach, and looking back, it's really obvious, but of course at the time I didn't see it, but it was like training was not something I was enjoying anymore. And my body felt really shitty, and I was like dreading going to the studio, and like a week before competition, I'm like, I have no idea like what I want to do. I'm just gonna like free dance it because like, it's gonna be great. I'm awesome at free dance. Yeah. I'm gonna go out there and free dance like Ogakoda. Like, you can do that, right? You can't. So. As soon as I got on the stage and the lights hit me and my music started, I just kind of had this like really big like oh shit moment where I didn't want to be seen, I didn't want to be on the stage, I didn't want to be looked at. In my mind, my internal dialogue was like, why did I choose this song? Like, what is this song? What am I wearing? Like, I would never wear this regularly. I would never dance to this song if it was my choice. Like, what are these movements that I'm trying to force my body to do that it obviously doesn't want to do? And I had a really bad time on stage. I remember about halfway through the internal dialogue became, don't cry until you get off. Don't cry until you get off the stage. Just wait till you get off the stage. My God, I was like, I messed up so bad to my coach, right? And it really messed me up for months, honestly. Because you guys get it, right? It's like you're an artist, and this is like your hobby and your passion and your self-identity gets so wrapped up in what it is that you're like putting on stage and like who you are as an artist. So it was like not only did I feel like I failed like as a pole dancer, but it started to like seep into like feeling like a failure as like a human being, right? So needless to say, I did not place first at that competition. I placed super dead last. And yeah, and it like really messed with me for a while, and looking back, I honestly think that like that was the most important moment of my career, because what it forced me to do was kind of shut down from like even wanting to look at social media. I didn't want to post anything on social media. I didn't want to perform or compete for anybody ever again. I'm done, I'm retired. And I started, like, I kind of took a break from pole dancing in general, and it was honestly like I kind of woken up from like this like stupor, or like this spell where I was like, oh my God, I'm more than just a pole dancer. And it was really like, it felt really like revolutionary. It was like, oh my God, yeah, remember when I was a kid and I was like wholeheartedly convinced I was a witch? And then it was like, I'm gonna get back into that. And I started like remembering pieces of myself that I kind of like abandoned like in the search of like what I thought people wanted me to be as this, you know, artist and professional pole dancer and what have you. Making sure I didn't miss any topics here. Index 1. Cool. And so what this ended up doing was it led me down this path of like dancing for myself again. And remembering when I started in 2010 and being like, yeah, like remember when like I didn't even have an Instagram and I didn't even know who like any of these pole stars were, and I just was like legit doing it because I loved it. I wasn't even in competition with myself in those days. There was no like I better get that Aisha today, right? Like, I don't even think I knew what that was at that time. I just was doing it. So I kind of went back to that, and then I started really feeling like I was moving like myself, and I was listening to my body, and I was like moving in ways that felt good and satisfying and, you know, wholesome, like in my body physically, but also like in my soul, right? Like I was starting to find some like creative and cathartic expression and release there. So I finally, you know, my coach was working on me for a while. She's like, dude, you gotta get back out there. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do it, but if I do it, I'm going to do it like me.
Yeah.
And I chose this song that just was like super witchy and gooey and like made me just, like if I just closed my eyes, it was like, you know, it was that song. And I like wore my little witch outfit and I went out there, I was like, I'm not doing any tricks. No. And I remember like on the stage, I kind of had this moment where I was like, I don't care what anybody thinks about this because this shit feels good. And I got off stage and I didn't need any external validation about how it looked or you know, what people thought about it. It was like I felt good on stage and I felt good off stage. And now that I've had this competition experience and I came back and I could tell my clients, my students about it, I now coach like 10 to 12 people regularly, competitively speaking. And I see this all the time with them too, you know, they're like, oh, like I have to compete against this one person. I looked at their Instagram and I can't keep up. I think I'm gonna drop out. Should I wait until December when I'm better? Like, should I? And I was like, man, like I'm not the only one that went through this. I see it with every single one of the people I train as well. And what I started noticing is that we start to develop what I've started to call movement dysmorphia, right?
Aww.
Where you forget how sweet you are because you're constantly looking at how sweet other people are. But you're not other people, and other people aren't you. And I think that this kind of movement dysmorphia, not only does it affect us like emotionally and mentally speaking, but I honestly think it increases our risk of injury a lot. Because we start feeling pressured to like hit, you know, insert arbitrary trick here by like arbitrary timeline. And like maybe our body's not ready for it, and or maybe our body's just not meant to do that trick, and that's fine because there's so many other things you can do. So I started noticing like, you know, it was affecting our mental wellness, it was affecting like physically speaking, people were coming to me with a lot of injuries, and I think the saddest part is that like people were falling out of love with movement and with pole dancing, and it was like we were forgetting to just move for the sake of movement. Because we loved it, right? So that's why I think it's important to find your own like authentic, unique path to yourself. But then it's like, okay, how do we do that? Like that all sounds great, Brooke. I'm on board. But like, how do I get there, right? Get off Instagram, right? I tell my clients this. And like, you don't have to become like a super like Luddite, like you're never on social media ever again and you like, you know, denounce all technology and things. But like, give yourself a break every so often. Like get off Instagram and stop trying to imitate or, you know, emanate like a different energy or style that you saw somebody else do, and just dance for yourself for a minute, right? Like see what feels good. I started teaching a workshop called Evoking Authenticity, and one of my clients in one of my workshops recently was like, yeah, like what do you do if you're recording yourself dancing and like something feels really good, but like it doesn't look good? And I was like, do the hell out of it. Right? Like who cares? Not every movement that you do and not every dance that you do and not every session that you have has to be for somebody else. It doesn't have to be for a competition. It doesn't have to be for a performance. You don't have to put it on Instagram. Like if it feels good and you liked doing it, like why stop? Who cares what it looks like? It's not always about that. So remember why you started. Get off Instagram. Release this notion that in order to be a real pole dancer, you have to compete or perform or put it out there for somebody else. Or in order to be a good pole dancer, you have to be able to do your handspring or your whatever, right? Like that's not what defines a good pole dancer. You are a real pole dancer if you just get on the pole, right? You're really doing it. And remind yourself to just explore movement. Give yourself that permission to explore and play and laugh at yourself. And not take it too seriously, right? Like I said, not everything has to be this like great, amazing, you know, industry-changing thing. Like, let it just be you and let it feel good. More than anything, I just really hope that anybody who hears this remembers like, oh yeah, like I did start pole dancing just because I straight up loved it. Remember that pole is supposed to be fun. You should 100% be enjoying your movement. If you're not, I feel like that's kind of problematic. Like, why are you there if you're not enjoying what you're doing? So remember that it's supposed to be fun. Remember to allow yourself to enjoy your movement. And honestly, the best way to maintain that enjoyment and that passion and that love for your movement and for pole is to just be true to yourself. Yes.
Aww.
Yay!